everybody, I'm Ryan, and today we're going to talk about Jund Sac. Just analyze the cards in the deck, what the overall strategy of the deck, just like a normal deck tech and things. Jund Sacrifice is a very powerful deck in Pioneer. Has been losing a little bit of stock of late. My camera! Okay, we're back. Has been losing a little bit of stock of late, but it's still a very, very powerful deck that became even more powerful with Bloomburrow. Let's do it. So this is a pretty stock Jund Sac deck. Now it's mostly red-black Sac, splashing green for Ygra and Sideboard Haywire Might. Sometimes the deck Sideboard's Abrupt Decay as well. But really, Ygra is just so powerful, with the deck that we're okay with it. The mana base is pretty straightforward. We're just trying to make sure we have our colors all the time. In combo decks, a lot of combo decks don't really focus on doing weird things with the mana like the mid-range versions of these red-black decks do. However, we are playing a Castle Lochwain and a Dead of the Bugbear. Some versions are playing the Channel Lands. I think they're a little too cute. I'd rather have my colors so that our deck can just always function, because the deck is weirdly color hungry. And so really what we're trying to do with this deck is get Mayhem Devil on the battlefield and sacrifice a bunch of things, either Cauldron Familiar and the food tokens with Witch's Oven, or the Scavenger's Talents, or Deadly Disputes, and deal a bunch of damage and nickel and dime our opponent, or Infinite Combo with Ygra. This deck also has a decent mid-range plan with Blood Tithe Harvester and Fable the Mirror Breaker, so we like that as well. So let's talk about the combos in the deck first, and then we'll talk about the cards that are supporting those combos. So Cauldron Familiar and Witch's Oven, by and large, are is a very well-known combo. Witch's Oven, sacrifice Cauldron Familiar, it makes a food, sacrifice the food, bring back Cauldron Familiar. That is already good by itself, but if we pair that with Mayhem Devil, you deal an extra damage every time something is sacked. So every time you loop that, it makes your opponent lose 3 life and you gain 1 life. It's even better with multiple Cauldron Familiars or multiple Witch's Ovens. And you can get food in a bunch of other ways, like having Ygra on the battlefield. All the creatures are foods. Scavenger's Talents, first level, is if a creature would die, create a food token. This creature only triggers once each turn, that we can use those foods to bring back Cauldron Familiar. And there's an infinite combo with Ygra and Cauldron Familiar. Now, if we have Ygra and any one other creature on the battlefield, it could be another Cauldron Familiar, and have at least 2 Cauldron Familiars, 1 in the graveyard, 1 in the battlefield, or 2 in the graveyard, what we can do is sacrifice the creature other than Ygra, whether it be Cauldron Familiar or something else, to bring Cauldron Familiar back, because all the creatures are foods according to Ygra. They lose a life, you gain a life because of Cauldron Familiar's Enter the Battlefield ability. Then you take the other Cauldron Familiar in the graveyard, they lose a life, you gain a life. Then you just keep doing that over and over, sacrificing the Cauldron Familiar on the battlefield for the one in the graveyard. Now, this is even cooler because you can kind of move into it quite a bit. Because yes, whenever one of your creatures die, create a food token. Cool, that's already pretty good. It's level 2 is when you sacrifice a permanent, target player mills 2 cards. Okay, so we sacrifice Cauldron Familiar with the Witch's Oven, sacrifice the food, sacrifice the blood token off Blood Tithe Harvester or Deadly Dispute. We want to mill ourselves, because we want to get those 2 Cauldron Familiars in our graveyard. And even if we mill the Ygra, that's totally fine, because we can level it up to level 3, and at the beginning of our end step, sacrifice 3 other non-land permanents, bring back the Ygra, and then do that combo, because we'll have the Cauldron Familiars in our graveyard as well. So that's all the weird combo-y stuff. I think it's important to mention that the Mayhem Devils and things like that trigger off of Deadly Dispute, which we have a lot of things in our deck and tokens that we make, whether it be food tokens or blood tokens or whatever, or Cauldron Familiars that we're totally okay with sacrificing with Deadly Dispute so we can churn through our deck and hit our combos. Bitter Triumph allows us to, remove things at a cost, but being a combo deck, we don't really care about costs like that. Claim the Firstborn is really cute. Gain control of target creature, mana value 3 or less till end of turn, tap that creature, gains haste, because it's a active treason where we get to jam, but it's 1 mana, and then we can sack that creature to Witch's Oven or Deadly Dispute, so we don't have to sack our own things. So that's a little bit of a combo there as well. And then our sort of mid-range plan, we're playing Fatal Push just for removal, really cheap. This card's great. Blood Tithe Harvester allows us to apply some pressure, allows us to be a removal spell on a stick, and also creates a blood token just as another thing to sacrifice to Mayhem Devil or to sacrifice to Deadly Dispute or things like that. Croxa is a little bit of a flex slot, but is very good. you know, against these decks that go really, really long. And then Fable of Mirror Breaker is even better, you know, with our mid-range plan. It digs us into our combo. We're playing a lot of cards that kind of don't do anything by themselves, so it allows us to discard those cards if we don't need them. It ramps us. Being able to flip into Reflection of Kiki Jiki and like copy a Mayhem Devil and then sacrifice things is really disgusting. There's a lot of really cool things with this deck. As you can see, there's a lot of incredible interactions. This deck's very hard to play, so you're going to want to get some games in with it before you play any sort of like relevant tournament. As far as the sideboard goes, Duress, you know, for these combo decks and control decks, similarly for Thoughtseizes, Path of Peril for the go wide, really small creature decks, Leyline of the Void for graveyard decks. Ob Nixilis is really good against the incredibly slower decks, just to diversify our threats, because it's a lot harder for us to get off our combos and to even have our mid-range plan, because we're kind of a bad mid-range deck because we're a mid-range deck leaning towards combos or a combo deck leaning towards mid-range decks. Jegantha, because it's free, but please make sure you are not revealing Jegantha if you bring in Path of Peril or Leyline of the Void, because that's how you lose games of Magic. And then Haywire Might, since we're playing green anyway, allows us to have these answers against things like Grafdigger's Cage or Leyline of the Void or whatever. So there you have Jund Sacrifice. If you like this video, please be sure to like and subscribe. Check me out on social media. Links are above me and in the description. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.